Most people spend their entire lives trying to be noticed. They talk louder, they smile more, they explain themselves endlessly. Yet the people who command the most respect usually do the opposite. They walk into a room and everyone feels them before they say a single word. That isn't confidence, it isn't luck, it's psychological presence. And today, you'll discover the 7 hidden principles that create a dangerous aura, an aura that earns respect without asking for it. Watch until the end, because the final principle changes everything. If this video changed the way you think about power and presence, subscribe for weekly videos on Machiavelli, dark psychology, human nature, stoicism, self-mastery, emotional intelligence. Become stronger, become wiser, become impossible to manipulate. Some people never raise their voice, yet when they enter a room, conversations stop. No one can explain why. They don't chase attention, they attract it. They don't prove themselves, they simply exist. And everyone feels their presence. This isn't charisma, it isn't confidence, it isn't luck, it is psychological power, a silent force that Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Today, you'll learn how to build that invisible aura, the kind that makes people respect you before you even speak. Look around the next time you walk into a crowded room. Within seconds, your mind will naturally separate people into invisible categories. Some individuals immediately command attention without saying a single word. Others can speak for 20 minutes and still disappear from everyone's memory. This difference has very little to do with beauty. It has little to do with money. It has little to do with social status. The greatest misconception about power is believing that people respect what they hear. They don't. They respect what they feel. Long before someone listens to your words, they have already formed an emotional conclusion about your presence. Their subconscious has already decided whether you are someone to follow, ignore, challenge, or avoid. Most people never realize this. Instead, they spend years trying to become more entertaining, more agreeable, more talkative, believing that visibility comes from expression. But the opposite is often true. The loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest one. Noise attracts attention, silence commands it. This is one of the oldest psychological principles hidden throughout history. Centuries ago, Niccolo Machiavelli observed something that remains true today. People rarely judge reality itself. They judge appearances, not because they are foolish, but because the human brain was designed to make rapid decisions. Before logic arrives, emotion has already chosen. That is why your presence enters the room before your voice ever does. And that presence is built long before anyone introduces themselves. Think about someone who has left a lasting impression on you. Perhaps they barely spoke. Perhaps they smiled only occasionally. Perhaps they never rushed to explain themselves. Yet somehow, everyone seemed aware of them. People naturally adjusted around them. Conversations slowed. Respect appeared almost automatically. Why? Because true authority is rarely announced, it is projected. Most people unknowingly destroy this projection every single day. They over-explain. They apologize constantly. They seek validation after every opinion. They laugh too quickly. They reveal every plan before it happens. They answer every message instantly. They become completely predictable. Predictability feels safe, but it never feels powerful. Human psychology is strangely attracted to uncertainty. What we fully understand quickly becomes ordinary. What remains partially hidden continues occupying our thoughts. This explains why mystery has fascinated humanity throughout history. An unfinished story keeps replaying inside the mind. An unanswered question becomes unforgettable. An unpredictable person is remembered long after predictable people are forgotten. This isn't manipulation, it's psychology. Your mind naturally returns to what it cannot completely solve. Now, imagine applying this principle to your own life. Instead of constantly revealing yourself, you begin creating space. Instead of reacting immediately, you observe. Instead of filling every silence, you let silence exist. Immediately, something changes. People begin paying closer attention, not because you've become louder, because you've become rarer. Scarcity creates value everywhere. Gold, diamonds, ancient books, works of art. Their value isn't created only by quality, it is protected by rarity. The same principle quietly governs human presence. Someone who is always available slowly becomes invisible. Someone whose attention cannot be easily obtained becomes memorable. This doesn't mean pretending to be cold, nor does it mean becoming arrogant. There is an enormous difference between distance and dignity. Arrogance tries to convince others of superiority. Presence never needs convincing. Presence simply exists. Imagine standing beside a mountain. The mountain never announces its height. It never competes with the hills surrounding it. It doesn't ask anyone to admire it. Its existence alone changes the landscape. That is what dangerous aura really is. Not intimidation, not aggression, not fear, certainty. An unshakable internal certainty that no longer depends on external approval. Unfortunately, modern society trains exactly the opposite. From childhood, we're rewarded for immediate reactions. Speak quickly, respond instantly. Share everything. Explain yourself, defend yourself, stay constantly available, become easy to understand, become easy to access, become easy to predict. Little by little, our identity becomes completely exposed. Every emotional button becomes visible. Every insecurity becomes public. Every desire becomes obvious. Once people understand exactly how to move you emotionally, they also understand how to control you. This is why emotionally dependent people often feel exhausted. Their internal world is permanently connected to external opinions. A compliment changes their mood. A criticism destroys their confidence. A delayed message creates anxiety. A stranger's opinion ruins their day. Without realizing it, they have handed strangers the keys to their emotional kingdom. Real power begins the day you quietly take those keys back, not by becoming emotionless, but by becoming emotionally self-governing. Imagine a castle surrounded by enormous stone walls. Visitors may knock. Some may be welcomed. Others may be ignored. But nobody enters without permission. Your mind should function the same way. Every opinion does not deserve access. Every criticism does not deserve a response. Every conflict does not deserve your energy. Once you understand this, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your reactions become intentional instead of automatic. People stop predicting your emotional state. Your confidence stops fluctuating with circumstances. Calm replaces urgency. Observation replaces impulse. Silence replaces unnecessary explanation. And almost without noticing, your presence begins changing. Not because you've learned a new trick, because you've removed the habits that made you psychologically transparent. Dangerous aura is not something you wear. It is something that naturally appears when your inner world becomes stronger than your need to be understood. Most people spend their lives trying to be accepted. Powerful people spend their lives becoming authentic. Acceptance depends on others. Authenticity depends only on you, and that is where true presence is born. The journey toward a dangerous aura doesn't begin with changing your appearance. It begins with changing your relationship with yourself. Because once you no longer need every room to approve of your existence, every room begins to feel your presence. There is a strange paradox about human nature. The harder someone tries to appear powerful, the less powerful they usually seem. Have you ever noticed how insecurity is often loud? It speaks quickly, it interrupts, it constantly seeks recognition. It fills every silence with unnecessary words. Real strength behaves differently. It has no urgency to prove itself. A lion does not spend its day convincing the forest that it is dangerous. Its behavior speaks long before its roar ever does. The same principle exists in human psychology. People are constantly reading signals you don't even realize you're sending. Every movement, every pause, every reaction, every expression, every moment of impatience, they all become information, and information creates perception. The frightening truth is that most people leak information all day long. Their anxiety is visible, their insecurity is visible, their desperation for approval is visible. Even when they remain silent, their body is speaking. Psychologists often describe communication as something that happens far beyond words. Before someone processes your sentence, they have already processed your posture. Before they analyze your opinion, they have already measured your emotional stability. Your nervous system introduces itself before your voice does. That is why presence cannot be faked for very long. Eventually, your internal state always escapes through your behavior. This is why developing a dangerous aura begins inside rather than outside. You cannot imitate calm. You must cultivate it. You cannot pretend confidence forever. You must build experiences that make confidence natural. And perhaps the most misunderstood ingredient of powerful presence is patience. Modern culture worships speed. Respond immediately, decide instantly, speak quickly, move fast, react now. But haste often communicates something very different from efficiency. It communicates emotional pressure. Imagine two people entering the same meeting. The first rushes inside, checks their phone repeatedly, adjusts their clothes every few seconds, laughs nervously, speaks before thinking. The second walks at a steady pace. Their breathing is relaxed. Their movements are deliberate. When they speak, they pause before answering. Nothing appears forced. Who feels more powerful? The answer has almost nothing to do with intelligence. It has everything to do with emotional regulation. People instinctively trust those who seem capable of controlling themselves. Because if someone cannot govern their own emotions, how could they possibly lead anything else? This idea fascinated many great strategists throughout history. External authority always begins with internal order. Chaos inside eventually becomes chaos outside. That is why dangerous people rarely appear emotionally explosive. Not because they never feel anger, not because they never experience fear, but because emotions obey them instead of ruling them. Think of the ocean during a storm. The surface becomes violent. Massive waves crash against one another. Everything appears unstable. Yet thousands of meters below, absolute silence, absolute stillness. The deepest parts remain untouched. That is emotional mastery. Life will always create storms, criticism, failure, betrayal, humiliation, unexpected loss. None of these experiences disappear simply because you become mentally stronger. The difference lies elsewhere. You stop allowing temporary weather to define your identity. Most people confuse emotions with identity. They say, I am angry, I am anxious, I am broken. Powerful individuals see emotions differently. They think, I am experiencing anger, I am experiencing fear, I am experiencing disappointment. Notice the difference. The emotion becomes temporary. The identity remains untouched. That small psychological shift changes everything. Because once you separate yourself from the emotion, you recover the freedom to choose your response. And response, not emotion, creates reputation. One emotional outburst can erase years of credibility. One moment of uncontrolled anger can permanently alter how people perceive you. Unfortunately, many people unknowingly surrender this power every day. Someone insults them, immediate reaction. Someone disagrees, immediate defense. Someone criticizes, immediate explanation. Someone ignores them, immediate anxiety. They become emotionally programmable. Others simply press the right buttons. The dangerous aura cannot exist inside a programmable mind. It belongs only to those who create space between stimulus and response. Imagine holding a burning coal. Your instinct tells you to throw it immediately. But imagine if your mind became strong enough to examine the heat before acting. Not forever, just long enough to choose. That tiny pause changes destiny, because almost every major mistake in life happens during emotional acceleration. Relationships end, careers collapse, friendships break, reputations disappear. Not because of years of planning, but because of 60 uncontrolled seconds. The people who seem impossible to manipulate have mastered one invisible habit. They slow down internally, even while the world speeds up around them. This calmness creates another unexpected effect. Observation. Most people never truly observe anyone. They're too busy preparing their next sentence, too busy defending their image, too busy worrying about themselves. Meanwhile, the observant person quietly gathers information. Who interrupts? Who lies? Who seeks attention? Who becomes uncomfortable with silence? Who constantly seeks validation? Without asking a single direct question, they understand everyone around them. Knowledge quietly replaces assumptions, and knowledge always beats impulse. There is another law almost nobody discusses. Power grows in proportion to self-control. Every unnecessary word spends influence. Every unnecessary reaction spends authority. Every unnecessary explanation spends credibility. Imagine influence as water inside a reservoir. Every emotional outburst opens another hole. Eventually, nothing remains. The people who seem unforgettable have learned something different. They protect their psychological energy, not because they dislike people, because they understand that attention is one of the most valuable resources they possess. They don't waste it arguing online. They don't waste it defending themselves against strangers. They don't waste it chasing approval from people already committed to misunderstanding them. Instead, they invest attention where it produces growth, learning, creating, building, improving, protecting what truly matters. Slowly, the world begins responding differently. Not because the world changed, because they changed. People start choosing their words more carefully. Disrespect becomes less frequent. Manipulation becomes less effective. Conflict loses its emotional grip. And something remarkable begins emerging. Presence, not manufactured, not rehearsed, earned. Because genuine aura is never created through performance. It is created through discipline. The discipline to remain centered when others become emotional. The discipline to remain silent when others crave reaction. The discipline to remain patient while others panic. This is why dangerous people rarely appear dramatic. Drama belongs to unstable minds. Power belongs to stable ones, and stability is one of the rarest forms of strength left in the modern world. By mastering your internal world, you quietly begin mastering every external room you enter. Not because people fear you, but because they can no longer move you. And nothing is more intimidating than a person whose peace cannot be stolen. There is a reason some people are remembered long after they leave the room. It isn't because they were the funniest. It isn't because they spoke the most. And it certainly isn't because they demanded attention. Their influence was built long before that moment. Every powerful presence is the result of invisible habits repeated every single day. Aura is never an accident. It is accumulated. Just as a sword is forged through thousands of strikes against fire and steel, your presence is shaped by the small decisions no one else ever notices. The way you wake up, the way you walk, the way you answer criticism, the way you carry silence, the way you protect your attention. These seemingly insignificant choices slowly construct the psychological image people carry of you. Most people underestimate repetition. They believe transformation arrives through one dramatic event, one motivational speech, one life-changing book, one breakthrough moment. But true power rarely arrives that way. Power grows quietly, almost invisibly, like the roots of an ancient tree spreading beneath the earth long before anyone sees the branches. The first habit is mastering solitude. Notice how uncomfortable most people become when they are alone. The moment silence appears, they reach for their phones, music, television, notifications, conversation, anything to escape themselves. Why? Because solitude forces us to meet the person we truly are. And that meeting is often uncomfortable. But the individual who learns to enjoy solitude gains something extraordinary. Their emotional dependence begins to disappear. They no longer need constant reassurance. They no longer fear silence. They no longer panic when attention shifts away from them. Their center of gravity moves inward, and people feel that. A person who enjoys their own company never appears desperate for someone else's. That quiet independence becomes magnetic. The second habit is protecting your attention. Your attention is your life. Where attention goes, identity follows. Every headline, every argument, every unnecessary notification, every pointless distraction steals a small piece of your mental clarity. Now, imagine repeating that process every day for years. Your mind becomes fragmented, restless, unable to focus deeply on anything. And without focus, presence disappears. Because presence requires complete attention to the moment you occupy. Look at history's greatest leaders, thinkers, warriors, and creators. They all guarded their attention fiercely. They understood something modern society desperately tries to hide. Attention is more valuable than time. You can recover lost money. You can rebuild a failed career. You cannot reclaim hours spent feeding distractions that added nothing to your life. The third habit is speaking with intention. Words lose value when used carelessly. Imagine receiving a letter from someone who writes only once a year. Every sentence matters. Now, imagine someone who sends 50 messages every day. Eventually, nothing feels important. The same law governs speech. People who constantly speak slowly become background noise. People who choose their words carefully create anticipation. Before you speak, ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Does it improve the moment? If the answer is no, silence is usually stronger. Many fear silence because they mistake it for weakness. In reality, silence often demonstrates confidence. Only insecure people feel compelled to fill every empty space. Confident people allow conversations to breathe. They understand that pauses create weight. Every great piece of music depends on silence. Without pauses, even beauty becomes noise. The fourth habit is becoming emotionally difficult to read. This does not mean becoming cold, nor does it mean suppressing your emotions. It means refusing to surrender control of them. Imagine someone insults you. Most people instantly react. Their face changes, their breathing changes, their voice changes. Within seconds, the other person knows exactly which emotional button they successfully pressed. Now imagine a different response. You remain calm, you maintain eye contact, you acknowledge the words, but refuse to surrender your emotional balance. Suddenly, the person standing before you feels uncertain. They expected access to your emotions. Instead, they found discipline. That uncertainty quietly shifts the balance of power, not because you defeated them, because they could no longer predict you. Predictability invites manipulation. Emotional discipline removes the invitation. The fifth habit is keeping your victories private. Modern culture rewards constant exposure. People announce every goal, every purchase, every achievement, every plan, every opinion. Everything becomes public. But there is hidden strength in privacy. A seed grows underground. The strongest foundations remain invisible. Construction always begins beneath the surface. Your ambitions deserve the same protection. Speak less about what you intend to become. Spend more time becoming it. Results create authority. Announcements create expectations. The truly dangerous individual lets success introduce them, not promises. The sixth habit is learning strategic absence. Most people believe influence comes from constant visibility. In reality, overexposure destroys mystery. Imagine hearing your favorite song 100 times every day. Eventually, its magic disappears. Scarcity preserves value. Your presence works the same way. You don't need to attend every gathering. Respond to every invitation. Participate in every conversation. Protecting your availability increases the value of your presence. When people cannot predict your arrival, they appreciate it more when you appear. The seventh habit may be the most important of all. Become impossible to rush. Look carefully at modern life. Everyone is hurrying, walking faster, talking faster, eating faster, thinking faster, reacting faster. Yet very few people ask themselves, where exactly are we rushing to? Urgency often signals inner instability. Calm movement communicates confidence. When you slow your pace, people unconsciously begin matching yours. This is social psychology. The calmest nervous system often influences the others around it. You become the emotional anchor in environments filled with chaos. That is leadership, not through force, but through regulation. Finally, there is one habit that silently connects them all: self-respect. Dangerous aura cannot exist without it. Not arrogance, not vanity, self-respect. Knowing what deserves your energy, knowing what deserves your attention, knowing when to leave, knowing when to remain silent, knowing when to speak, knowing that your value is not determined by applause. The moment your self-worth stops depending on external approval, everything changes. People stop sensing neediness. They stop sensing fear. They stop sensing desperation. Instead, they encounter someone who belongs to themselves. And there is something profoundly unsettling about people who cannot be emotionally purchased. Because they are free. True aura is simply freedom made visible. Freedom from constant validation. Freedom from unnecessary explanation. Freedom from emotional dependence. Freedom from the exhausting need to impress everyone you meet. That freedom cannot be imitated. It must be earned. One disciplined day at a time. And when it finally becomes part of who you are, people won't remember everything you said. They won't remember every detail of your appearance, but they will remember exactly how they felt when you walked into the room, because real presence never asks for attention. It quietly becomes unforgettable. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize a painful truth. Not everyone who smiles at you wants the best for you. Not every compliment is sincere. Not every opportunity is genuine. Not every friendship is equal. And not every battle deserves your attention. The world is filled with people trying to influence your decisions. Some do it consciously. Others don't even realize they're doing it. Family, friends, co-workers, strangers, social media, advertising, politics. Everyone is competing for one thing: your mind. Because whoever influences your thinking eventually influences your life. That is why the greatest form of power is not controlling others. It is refusing to be controlled. Most manipulation succeeds for one simple reason. People desperately want to be liked. The need for approval is one of the strongest forces in human psychology. Once someone discovers that need inside you, they no longer need to threaten you. They simply threaten your image. If you cared about me, a good person would. I thought you were different. You've changed. Notice what these phrases have in common. They aren't attacking your actions. They're attacking your identity. They are trying to make you question who you are. And the moment you begin defending yourself, they've already taken control of the conversation. The strongest people rarely defend their character because they understand something most never learn. People who are determined to misunderstand you will never be convinced by explanations. No amount of words can change a mind committed to distortion. So stop trying. Your life is not a courtroom. You don't need to present evidence for every decision you make. Sometimes, the most powerful answer is no answer at all. Silence has a strange effect on manipulation. Manipulators expect resistance. They prepare for arguments. They anticipate emotional reactions. But silence gives them nothing to fight. No opening, no weakness, no emotional fuel. Eventually, their own words become heavier than yours because they echo in a space you refused to fill. Another invisible trap is guilt. Guilt has convinced countless people to sacrifice their peace in exchange for temporary acceptance. They say yes when they want to say no. They apologize for things that require no apology. They tolerate disrespect because they fear appearing difficult. But ask yourself one question. Who benefits when you abandon your own boundaries? Almost never you. Healthy boundaries do not destroy relationships, they reveal them. The people who genuinely respect you will adapt. The people who only valued your obedience will disappear. And perhaps that is not a loss. Perhaps it is clarity. There is another lesson that changes everything. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Not every argument deserves participation. Not every insult deserves correction. Energy is finite. Every unnecessary conflict steals attention from the life you are trying to build. Imagine carrying a bucket of water across a desert. Would you pour it onto every patch of dry sand you encounter? Of course not. You would protect every drop. Your attention deserves the same discipline. Spend it where growth is possible, not where chaos is endless. People with dangerous presence understand this instinctively. They choose peace over proving a point. They choose progress over endless debate. They choose action over performance. This does not make them passive, it makes them selective. And selectivity is power. Another secret separates unforgettable people from everyone else. They never chase respect. They cultivate standards. Respect is a consequence. Standards are a decision. The moment you decide what behavior you will and will not tolerate, your life begins changing. Not because others suddenly become kinder, but because access to you becomes conditional. And people value what requires qualification. Imagine entering a museum. The rarest masterpiece is protected behind glass, not because it is fragile, because it is valuable. Your time, your attention, your emotional stability, these deserve the same protection. Stop giving unlimited access to limited resources. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing strength means winning every confrontation. Real strength often looks completely different. It looks like walking away. It looks like remaining calm. It looks like refusing to answer insults. It looks like continuing your work while others waste themselves in unnecessary battles. History remembers builders, not every critic who shouted at them. The people who shape the future rarely spend their lives arguing with those who refuse to understand them. They create, they improve, they move forward, quietly, consistently, without asking permission. Eventually, their results become impossible to ignore. This is the final transformation. At the beginning of your journey, you wanted people to notice you. Now, you no longer need that. You wanted everyone to approve of you. Now, you understand approval is temporary. You wanted to appear powerful. Now, you seek only to become powerful because appearance fades, character remains. A dangerous aura is not built through intimidation. It is built through discipline. The discipline to control your emotions, the discipline to guard your attention, the discipline to remain patient while others become impulsive, the discipline to walk away from what no longer serves your growth, the discipline to let your actions speak louder than your explanations. That is the real architecture of presence. Not mystery for the sake of mystery, not silence for the sake of silence, but complete ownership of yourself, where no one can manipulate your emotions. No one owns your peace. When no one controls your attention, no one controls your future. When no one determines your worth, you become truly free. And freedom is the rarest form of power in the modern world. So the next time you walk into a room, don't try to impress anyone. Don't try to prove your value. Don't try to force respect. Walk in with quiet certainty. Speak with intention. Protect your energy. Stand by your principles and leave before you feel the need to explain yourself. Because the most unforgettable people never beg to be remembered. They simply become impossible to forget. The world will always be full of noise. Choose to become the silence that everyone notices.